Awesome. Welcome, guys. Hey, this is Natalie Cutler-Welsh here. Welcome to this episode of Inspire Higher. This is our weekly blab show. Last week, Nat T was on, and we take turns. So there's three of us as co-hosts. So we got me, Nat Cutler-Welsh, the go-to girl. We've got Nat T, Natalie Tolliff, from Catapult Your Business. And we've also got Lisa Black from Heart Magic. So that's really cool. So each week we take a turn at hosting, and once a month you get the trio. So you get all three of us together. But you can check out all the replays by just having a look at my profile, and anyone that I'm on, then you can check the replays out there. And as well, I'll be putting up the replays on my website, gotogirlssocialmedia.com. But today I'm talking to Vanessa Ness Baxter. She can tell us where she is, but and her experience, because she's an ex-master chef. She's now doing corporate workshops, training people kind of, you can tell better than I can, but like team bonding and stuff around cooking, which is your gift. So today our topic is really going to be all about sharing your gift with workshops. So I'm really excited. Welcome, Vanessa.
Thank you, Natalie. It's my first blab, so I'm pretty excited. Nervous excitement. I was
That's
excited
cool. We
until
got up
5
extra
minutes before the blab.
We got up extra early and we decided, okay, are we going to wear yellow? Are we going to wear pink? Are we going to wear blue? We decided to both wear yellow today. I think it's so funny.
I do
It's awesome.
actually think it's funny because I deliberately avoided orange, which is your usual colour. And I thought, I better not wear orange or we'll be twins. So I went for the yellow and we've both done it.
That's cool. I like it. It's funny. That's all good. Okay, so awesome. So thank you, guys. So if anyone's new here to Blab, welcome to your first or second Blab. I'll just remind you, if you're on your phone, I'm pretty sure it's along the bottom that you can actually just tap on other people that are here live watching, and it'll open their profile, and you can then go and follow them if you like the sound of their profile. And same thing if you're watching on your laptop, usually it's up at the top. There's kind of a little bar of all the people that are live. So we've got people you can just hover. Again, you can click on their face or their image, and then again, you can follow them. So it's a great way to just basically to network while you're here with us on Blab, and also make sure you do comment and ask questions in the boxes. So I guess what I'd love to do, Ness, before we get into some of your tips and everything around workshops is, can you give people a little bit of a background, just elaborate on what I said, more about you? Like, first of all, where are you right now? Are you an Aussie?
No, I'm in New Zealand. So I live in New Zealand, but I am Australian. And but I live in Auckland now with my husband and two teenage boys. And it's beautiful here at the moment, so it's very exciting. But I've just had 3 weeks back in Australia, which was also awesome, with extended family, which is really important. So I've done that, and I'm back in New Zealand. And yeah, I was crazy enough 3 years ago to go on MasterChef in New Zealand as an Aussie, which is kind of an insane choice. But I'd just come in from 16 years of living in Asia at the time, and I'd actually never watched a MasterChef episode. And I thought, this is a really cool thing, because I'll go on MasterChef and I'll meet all these amazing foodie people, and it seems that you meet these great chefs, and it will just involve me basically in the foodie world. And I had absolutely no idea, really genuinely no idea when I joined MasterChef that I was actually joining a reality television program. So it was a huge eye-opener and a crazy journey for me from the very beginning. And I was blessed enough to make...
What do you think got you in? Because obviously there's a lot of competition. So do you know, why they said yes to you, or they say no to like hundreds of other people?
I mean, the first thing you have to do is actually fill out a really long questionnaire. So I was actually amazed to even get a response to that, to be honest. Right. And I guess, I've been very, very lucky in that my husband has been an expat for our whole lives together. And so I've managed to live in loads of different countries and have some pretty crazy experiences, which I shared in my initial survey that they sent out. So I guess that was probably the first catch was, yeah, she's really into food, but she's also got all these other crazy, quirky countries she's lived in and all these experiences that she's had. So that was probably a little bit of a catch for me. And then the first couple of sort of interviews / auditions that you have to go through to get there, I guess I express myself in the similar way that I write. So, I pretty much have my heart on my sleeve. And I guess for reality television, not that I realized that's why I got in. I thought I got in because I had amazing food on the plate. But I would suggest that from the director's point of view, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I tell it all. My facial expressions show how I'm feeling, and it makes pretty good TV as well. So to be honest, I'd say it was a bit of both.
And before that, had you, because I know you've been on Good Morning doing like cooking demonstrations and stuff, our local show here in New Zealand. Had you, what came first? Had you already been on Good Morning before that?
No, MasterChef came first. I'd only landed in New Zealand 2 months before I applied for MasterChef. I really arrived and I was like, I'd been a trailing spouse for a really long number of years, 13 years, and I had done lots of work while I had been away with Tim, but it had always been what the community sort of threw at me. I grasped and followed, what was available at the time in different countries, such as Jakarta and Singapore and Ho Chi Minh City. So when I arrived in New Zealand, I was like, you know what? I'm finally in a place where I think I can do what I really want to do. And I've always been passionate about food and the travel side of things, but through food and bringing people together through food and hoping that food will help me meet other people and be able to share experiences over a really nice meal. And I started just Googling, I guess, when I got here, food in New Zealand, and a pop-up came up saying, MasterChef New Zealand, and there's only 12 days left to get in your application form. MasterChef, oh, that sounds cool. And it was a really quick reactive sort of situation where I just applied without really knowing what on earth I was applying for, and then excited because I got the response. And then I suddenly found myself at an audition, and I thought, how cool to tell my kids that I actually went to that audition, and, I probably won't get through and nothing will come of it, and it doesn't matter. We don't have to organise anything as a family. I'll just go to the audition, which was at a 5-star hotel in the middle of Auckland, and I'll get to meet a whole heap of people because I've just landed here and I don't know anyone. And the next thing I found myself leaving my family for 2 months, living, in the MasterChef house, and certainly meeting a lot of people I wouldn't have met otherwise. So yeah, that happened. And then off the back of that, thanks to, I was very blessed, and I did go all the way through to the semi-finals, and the host of Good Morning here in New Zealand said that she'd followed me and she had sort of had a little bit of a soft spot for me. And so she invited me on to Good Morning, and we hit it off and did well. And so I've been on pretty much every month since then, which has been awesome exposure. But for me, great fun. And, I've been fantastic. Had a fantastic opportunity to be able to share what I absolutely love, which is food from around the world, but in a simple way, so that hopefully people in New Zealand have been able to try some different recipes. But sadly, the TV show has finished in December. So Good Morning New Zealand is no more, which is pretty sad. So that's pretty.
I mean, that's right. It's been like a Kiwi institution. I was on Good Morning, actually. I think it was 2 years ago when we launched my book, my parenting book, If Only They'd Told Me, and we were on there too. Hey, it's interesting. Like, my mind is just going crazy just based on some of the stuff you're saying. I'm like, there's so many topics in there that we could delve into, which we won't. But, the role modeling for your children, right? So often, we're like, oh, honey, try it for this team, or, give it your best shot. And then, but if we're not doing that in our own lives, it doesn't translate. So I love the fact that you were like, you know what, I'm just going to go out there. Like, who knows what's going to happen? And then the topic of supportive partners, right? You didn't know you're going to be in for 2 months living in the MasterChef house and everything that came with that. The joys and the stresses. And then, like, sometimes in life and in business, right, opportunities come at us, and it's hard to decipher opportunity versus distraction. I was listening to a webinar this morning with Jamie Tardy, and she was talking about that exact concept. So this is like an amazing opportunity that came to you. It was aligned with your interests and possibly your bigger goals, and you took it, and look what happened. And then, of course, media opportunities and the whole topic of like monetizing media opportunities. So like, oh my God, I'm just like jotting down these future topics that we can cover in other blabs. But today we're going to be talking about workshops. So to kick things off, I'd love if anyone who's listening live, and if you're listening to the replay, we still want to know your thoughts. We still want you to be part of the conversation. So definitely go on to I'll probably post this on the Go To Girl Facebook page, and you can just comment on there. But let us know any workshops that you're running. So we want to know in the comment the name of your business and any workshops that you're running, because like it's a great opportunity for people to just share what they're doing, give each other support, and also to get some ideas and promote your business, of course. So while we're chatting, feel free to go ahead in the comments and let us know what type of workshops you're running in 2016. That's so funny. We've got a comment from Allison. Allison's from a business called Run for Your Life. She coaches people on how to love running and how to run marathons, etc. And she says, I had no idea you had such an interesting background. I know. It's cool. It's amazing.
It's quite funny because I don't think of it that way. You know, when you suggested, for example, Natalie, that we do the blab today on, you know, bringing your gift to workshops, I felt I don't have a gift. Like, it's not, you know, I don't view it that way. I really appreciate my life. I so appreciate the opportunities, but I don't look back and think, wow, my life has been more interesting than someone else's. Or, I mean, I do feel blessed for the travel, but then I also look at other people who have got more of a homestay life. And I look at how they've settled into a community and how many friends their children have and how many family friends they have and how they've been able to grow their home and fill it with all the possessions from when the children have been young to now. And we haven't been able to do that. But other people look at me and think, no, but you're so blessed because you've lived in 8 different countries and look at the experiences your children have had. So it's hard to sort of look and say, wow, it's so interesting and I have a gift, because I don't necessarily view it like that. It's just what I'm passionate about. And I'm sure everyone has something that they're passionate about.
It's so true. I mean, I was saying to someone the other day, I know, she came to see me, this one woman, she was looking at working with me. We're actually doing a 4-hour session today after this. I'm coaching her. And I was just talking about, you know, the way I just like to spiel out copy, like sales copy, or just the way that you can talk in Facebook ads and emails. And she was like, oh my God, you're so good. I'm like, I know. Well, my gift is my voice, right? So I said, my gift is my voice. I love to talk. I love to interview people. I don't necessarily love to write. I'm really quick at writing because I've done a master's. So I'm really, really fast and I've written a book, but I preferred it. And I love to listen. So my preference is to listen to other people talking or to be talking myself. No wonder I made a business all around networking. But I think it's so interesting for people to just step back and think, actually, what is my gift? Because I agree. Everybody has a gift, whether they use that phrase or not, they might not call it their gift. But, you know, again, people, go ahead and comment in the chat box. Let us know what your gift is. You're not bragging or skiting. It's just like, well, actually, if I had to choose, I think my gift is, someone might say blogging or writing, or someone else might say like, I'm an amazing dancer or whatever it might be. And another great gift my husband has is he's a great listener, right? So like everyone's got their own gift. So today we're going to talk about sharing your gift, whatever that might be, with workshops. So yeah, do you want to start off with, I guess, can you paint a picture about the workshops you've been running and what you've learned? Like, I would love some do's and don'ts, like even something that you've done with your workshop that didn't work. I think people, you said you wear your heart on your sleeve. We love to hear what does work and also like what hasn't worked, so that other people can try to not make those same mistakes.
Sure thing. So the workshops I run are varied, but if we have a look at the corporate team build workshops, because I think they're probably the most important and pertinent for this blab, I also do classes for kids, and I'll draw some comparisons in there because they do overlap a lot in the key points that I think are important for making a really successful event. And I probably don't really call them workshops, but that's really more because mine always involve food. So it's like a team build scenario. Yeah. So I'm not a chef, you know, I'm just really passionate about food and about sharing my journey of food with others. And in that way, I've started the workshops as a team build for corporate. So in general, they're either people's own teams, but often, of course, nowadays, you know, teams are not a group of people all sitting around and sharing and knowing each other really well. So they tend to be compartmentalized, or they may not even be in that same location. So often in New Zealand, you find one team is actually stretched across the whole of New Zealand. So they fly people in and they might have a conference, and I might be part of the breakaway section of that conference. And what I do is I set up like a MasterChef challenge using food as the vehicle to create a competition between people. And the food is exciting and it's fun. And what I do is introduce people, and they come in and we give them the challenge, and I give them a little bit of a background and why we're doing what we're doing. And then I get everyone cooking against each other in teams. And I think people suddenly start chatting. They're chatting about things that it may not be something that they're used to doing, or for some it may be something that they are used to doing. And it's interesting how you watch very quickly leaders develop within that team, or people sharing ideas, or there's sort of like a little bit of jostling about who's going to take control over the dish. Yeah. And then they create cool food and present it, and I do a really gentle kind of judging at the end and tie it all together. But whether
do you actually have a winner, or do you go like, oh, everyone's the winner?
No, I do not go politically correct. That's very Kiwi, and it's so not me. So what I do though, is what I try to do is I try to find along the way, and I think this is part of the success, is I join in and listen very carefully. And if I have staff with me, I also ask them to always have a pen and paper with them. And if they spot something that they think is amusing or fantastic or different, or if they hear someone say something that's funny or unique, to please pop it down, because I can't be in every place in the room at the same time. And before I do the coming together at the end and presentation, of course, I've got the blessed situation that people will sit down and eat. So I let them have a little bit of an eat and a bit of a chat and a laugh about how their food is, or hopefully they're chuffed with their food and they're proud of what they've produced. And in that time, I come together with the staff or by myself and review the notes and have a look at what I can share in a positive way or in a funny way with the entire group. And then I'll try to choose a winner. But I'll also have maybe a spot prize for, the biggest disaster of the day, or a spot prize for the person who has shown the best leadership skills, because they may not come from the winning team. Yeah. So I try to be fair. Yes.
I like that. I like that you kind of celebrate the people that, like celebrate mistakes, right? Or learning opportunities. I think that's pretty cool.
Oh, look, absolutely. In fact, I'll share a story for you on that. And I think this is really important in no matter what team building or workshop you hold. You have to understand you have a personality which you're bringing into the workshop. But, of course, you have an audience, and they may be there all for the same goal at the end. But they are all going to bring in their own individual personalities. And they may be very different to yours. And you have to celebrate everybody's different personalities. Now, I can find the humor in some and maybe celebrate it in a humorous way, because it is so different to mine. I cannot understand it. But I can turn it maybe into a little bit of humor and engage that person by maybe showing them they don't need to be so quiet, or they don't need to be so particular, or that I wouldn't do it that way, but that's okay that they are. And I think it's really important to acknowledge the difference in the room of either different groups or different people. And for example, I put a team together without obviously knowing the personalities of the people in the particular team to work together. So you might do this in a writer's workshop. I saw someone here is doing writing, or even in a seminar where you're talking about running. You may put people together in different groups who you don't know and ask them to work on something as a group to then share back with you. But that's what I'm doing with food. Exactly. So these people came together, and one guy was really particular, terribly important for him to be measuring everything. And it was cooking, it wasn't baking. It didn't, if it was 40 grams, if it was 50 grams of butter, it wasn't going to make any difference to what was going in to fry the onion. But it was very important to him. So he was very particular. And he had another guy on his team that just wanted to cook. He just wanted to throw it in the pan and cook. And I was watching from the background these two guys just absolutely at loggerheads with each other because they couldn't understand each other. So across the board, I shared a story just to the whole group. And I said, my mum absolutely loves to cook, but she's someone who's really passionate about following the recipe. It's very important to her that all her ingredients are measured properly, that each ingredient in a recipe is followed. So if it asks for oregano, then she has oregano. The rule follower. And that's okay. And her food is fabulous. We love eating at my mum's house. And, I definitely probably passionate about being in a kitchen, thanks to mum, because that's where we grew up, in the kitchen with her cooking. But I do not cook like that. I throw in alternatives all the time. Otherwise, I would never have survived on MasterChef. It's the mystery box. What are you going to do with it? And, you don't necessarily have, if I'm following a US recipe, how can I be specific in the Southern Hemisphere where our measurements are slightly different? So you just have to kind of go with the flow.
Yeah.
That's me. So I understood both of these men. Anyway, I ended up sharing the story about Mum and the whole team.
Yeah.
And everyone sort of had a laugh and, oh, yes. But then at the end, I had an award for the person who was most similar to my mum. And, of course, I gave it to the guy who had been so specific in his group. And he got ribbed for getting that award by the rest of his team. But everyone understood it because they said he's like that at work as well. And it allowed him to have a laugh about who he was in a safe environment, but also to highlight the differences in their own team. And the feedback from that was, fantastic, that I'd really involved them and understood them as personalities. And I think that's really, really vital, is that you just don't throw what you believe in a workshop at people and expect them to do it exactly the same way or to understand it only from your perspective. You also have to give and take from your audience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. And I think it's so interesting when you're running, because you're not just running a workshop where you're presenting information and they're writing stuff down. You're actually having a debrief of sorts. And because your goal is really team building using the medium of food. And it's like when I was back in the day, when I used to be an Outward Bound instructor, we'd give them a challenge or a task, and then we would debrief it, right? And I went to a conference not so long ago called Money and You, and it was very much based around doing kind of games, right? And then debriefing it, and you start looking at how you behaved in the game or the activity. Is that what you do like in your real life, in everyday life? And quite often it is, right? The way you behave in the game is like your people did, right? In the game, it wasn't a game. And during the cooking, one was very particular because he's a rule follower. If you want to go personality types, he's the beaver, right? They need to do it right. They need to follow instructions. They love lists, all that kind of stuff, everything in its place. And the other person was more like me and like you, like more creative. They just like to go with the flow. But in business and in their team, that you need to have a variety of people. And so, I mean, the lessons that can come out of that are just fascinating in terms of team building, but also in terms of hiring staff. Like for us, right? For us solopreneurs, when we're looking at bringing people onto our team, we want to think about what is my personality type? What are my gifts? What is my area of genius? And what are the areas that I don't like doing, and that maybe when I bring someone in, I don't really want to bring like a clone of myself. I actually want to bring in people that are more detail orientated, that are more, if I'm really into the detail, they're more big picture, or vice versa. So, I mean, there's so many interesting things you can draw out of that.
Oh, absolutely. I love it. Okay, you say it's bringing my gift, and it is. I'm bringing me and my absolute passion of food into this environment and hoping to assist in creating team building and people working together around my passion and my medium, which is food. Yeah. But also the takeaway is so huge for me. I mean, often I'll be tired, or you've spent a lot of time planning for workshops, and that's, the big key to success at the beginning, isn't it? You must plan. You have to plan everything to infinite detail, no matter what you're doing. Even if it's just a workshop it's a room and all you have to give to people is a piece of paper, as a handout, you still need to plan what you're going to say, how you're going to involve your audience, how you're going to keep people interested. For me, it's an incredible amount of planning, because I have to do the shopping. I have to make sure everyone's going to have exactly what they need. I need to provide the recipe. I need to make sure I've got leftover stuff to do a little demo in advance. There's a whole heap of things that I need to plan. Equipment, is it working on the day? Or what if I turn up to a location and the equipment isn't working? What is my backup plan? Have I got giveaways? Do I have prizes? Have I done enough? There's so much to plan in there. And so when you arrive at a function, well, for me, sometimes I arrive and I'm exhausted, not physically necessarily, but I'm almost mentally exhausted just for the setting up process before anyone even arrives. And I think sometimes, why am I doing this? This is crazy. And I often, to be honest, think about this with children's classes and think the amount of work is even more, because a lot has to be pre-prepped for them. You have to make sure the flow of your workshop is going to be continuous, because they don't have a long attention span, so you have to keep them busy all the time. So you sometimes think, just before you start, what on earth am I doing here? And then the people come into the room And immediately that disappears. And the exhilaration after a workshop for me is the biggest reward ever. You know, it's not about the business. It's not about whether I've got another job out of it. It's not even when the invoice comes in. It's like, oh, that 2 hours and the people that I've related to and the journey of that workshop is so exhilarating for me. And I think that's, really, really important that you get it right, that you feel this was such an awesome experience. I gave, but I also got back. And that's what keeps me going. I mean, I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. So yeah, even on my tired days.
That's so good. And it is draining. It's a lot of work. I mean, people out there that have run workshops, they know how much goes into it. And obviously the more you do it, the more you can have a system in place. You can write down your run sheet or your SOPs around it and all that kind of stuff. You mentioned the word plan. I love acronyms and things like that. I've got like the 4 B's that I use for business. But one of the things I also use is the 4 P's around workshops. So I'll just share those now. So plan, promote, present, and party. Okay. So
that's funny, Nat, because I had as my top 3 keys for successful workshops: planning, marketing, so that's your promote, and involving audience, that's your partying. So what's your 4th one?
Well, one
presenting.
Present, which is like delivering, like doing it.
Yeah.
And then party is actually celebrate. So this is so interesting, and it's something that we've talked about a lot in my Go-To Girl community, is that so often, we'll give a talk at an event, or we'll run a webinar, or we'll do a workshop, or whatever it might be. And then so often we go straight into like critical mode, like, it was, I should have done this and I could have done that. And if only I'd thought about this ahead of time, right? We start debriefing it ourselves, but in that kind of negative way. And so party is really like, hang on, right? Before you get into like, what could I do different next time? Let's just celebrate the fact, it's basically celebration. Let's just celebrate the fact that you did it, that you had like 10 people show up. They had a good time. Like you said, like the people leave there buzzing, right? Just so excited.
Sure.
And so it was a success. So I really always love to encourage people to just, before you start getting into like self-critique mode, is just to like hold yourself there and celebrate like all the things that went well. And then, of course, a part of that is to now let's look at like what we could do differently next time. And some of the things you can control and some of them you can't control. But I think it's so important to, so party really is that, it's that celebrating the fact that you actually put yourself out there, that you did it, et cetera, et cetera. So very cool.
Oh, I like your acronym. I'll have to change that.
My 4 P's. So I just wanted to welcome some people that are coming in. I see Kate, she's a LinkedIn specialist, and Rebecca Zwitzer, who is a graphic designer from Stir Creative. So very excited to have some new girls to Blab joining us today as well. So let's talk a little bit more about workshops, because I really want people to leave here with some really actionable ideas in terms of like what they need to do. So obviously the 4 P's that we discussed is really good. Anything else? I'm sorry, I stole one of your tips, but do you have another one you want to put forward?
That's all right. No, with the planning, I use a really cool app actually from the States, which is called AnyList.
Okay.
And although it is fairly pertinent to me in that you can pop recipes on there and then create lists from that, the second part of it is just adding in lists. And so what I've done over time is created lists that are not shopping lists but packing lists.
Okay.
So what do I need to pack when I go to a function, down to, do we need paper and pens? Do I need to remember my banner? Do I remember, what are the things that I need to remember at every single function I go to? So I just have a basic pack list. Then I might have a list that is for functions where I turn up to people's offices. So in some cases, we don't have any cooking facilities at all. They're called my paper bag challenges. So we turn up and it's maybe in a boardroom, and it involves doing taste tests and food recognition tests, maybe wine tasting, beer tasting, blind, and also maybe creating some food, but not with any cooking facilities. So it might be cold appetizers and things. So what do I need whenever I do one of those? Because it's not just the food for the recipes, which may change, but it's also all those taste tests and things, and they remain pretty much the same. So I have these lists going, and I think whether you use an app or whether you start to create, your system for yourself and have it in a Google Docs or just have it, don't keep writing down, which I did for a year on scraps of paper. And I spoke to a chef the other day, and he and I are very different, and I understand that. But I said to him, you know, I told you about any list. Are you using it? And he said, oh, no, I just like to grab a piece of paper and write things down because some things I have already in the kitchen. I said, and you can still use a list that's on a template for that and tick it off. Even if you're someone who still wants to print that list and go to your cupboard or go to your car and tick that you have half the things in there, it just saves you so much time. Even if the list is not exactly the same for the next one, just start to create a few systems because it will just help you each time you do one to not have to start from scratch. And it just reminds you, because some days you are tired, and it reminds you, have you got your prizes? Have you got your giveaway bags ready? Have you got your recipes? Or have you got your handouts? What is it that you need to take each time you do one? And it just gets you on track, I think. So planning, I think, is just utmost important.
I totally love that. I wrote it down in the comments. Create systems, use apps like AnyList or Trello. That is so good. I mean, you know, for me, I run these networking events, right? And I've run like, I don't know, 12 or something before. And of course, I've got them now in a Google Doc, but I'm at the point where I'm starting. Some of the girls in my influencers groups are running similar but different events, right? Maybe it's a networking event. I know that Bronwyn down in Dunedin, she's planning right now for a Get Stuff Done workshop, which is a smaller workshop. And so together we're creating the Google Doc, which is like, it becomes a template. And then I let the girls, of course, they zhuzh it, you know, they make it their own, but some of the activities that we do and some of the timing, because sometimes if you've never done a workshop before, you have no idea how long the intros are going to take. And if you don't manage that accordingly or allow some buffer, then things can get thrown off and then you never really achieve your goal. Or maybe this is a classic mistake a lot of people make, right? They'll run a workshop and they'll have their idea for what their upsell is, meaning what they're going to invite people to join after that, a nice natural flow on offering from the event. But they just won't allow time for it in their plan. And so they end up skipping it. And so while the people had a good time and while they got to deliver their current workshop, they didn't actually get a chance to enroll anyone in their next workshop or their high level coaching program or whatever it might be. So it's really important to budget the time in for that. So I love that tip about creating systems so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I love that. And also separate lists for separate types of events. Great.
Yeah, sure. And you need to know, so that's the lists, but in your planning as well, I think it's really important to know that not everything does always go to plan, does it? So especially when food's involved or something creative, you know, maybe you're running a workshop where it's about writing and you think, oh, they'll only take 15 minutes in a group to get all that down. Yeah. And when you're walking around and you're looking at how people are going on a particular task you might have asked them, then you realize they actually haven't got there yet. They're still chatting. They haven't written anything down, but some goodness is coming out of that. So you don't want to stop them just because on your plan, you've said that's only going to take 15 minutes. And I'm very conscious of that. So I think I've got my timing sorted pretty well now. But in the start, especially for children's classes, I always had backup. So I probably, to be honest, always used to try to do too much and I had to pull it back. Now I worry because I've pulled it back. Now I worry, have I pulled it back too far? Am I going to have all these children for 45 minutes with nothing to do? Now, it doesn't happen, but I still worry about it. So I've always got to back up. What will I do if I do get to that point? How will I engage them? What else can I teach them? And what else can we do? And I think it's really important to have a backup to your plan one way or the other. If they need more time to cook, give them that time, but you still need to fit in the other things you want to achieve. And you may need to talk to the organizer of the person who's brought them, if it's a whole team that's come, and say, hey, I think this is going to go over the time, or share it with the whole group and say, I see you're really passionate about what you're doing. I'd love to give you the extra 15 minutes I think this is going to take, but it might mean we go over or we might have to pull back on that. How does everyone feel about that? And get the feedback from them. Ask them, is that what you need? Is this helpful? Am I reading the situation right? Should we change where we're at? Because if you just stick to your plan, it'll be obvious that you haven't engaged properly with the group. It hasn't become your passion anymore. It's just, oh, I've got a plan and I need to stick to it. And, I'm being a detailed person, which is not me.
I love that. I use the term like having something in your back pocket, meaning like have an activity up your sleeve so that if like all of a sudden everything's going really quickly, or the activity you planned, like they're just not into it and it's not working, like you can pull out something else. So it's have
absolutely.
a plan, have a backup plan as well. That's super important. Definitely.
And then I think, it's great. You've done all your planning and you've got yourself all organized, but you've forgotten to let people know what you're doing. So whether it's that you have, you've already got a group coming, so that's fantastic. So your room's going to be full with that group, or maybe you're trying to market to individual people and pull a room together with individual people coming in, like my children's groups, I guess. It's really, really important to let the world know what you're doing for a couple of reasons. One, you want to fill your room, or you want to, at least, even if you're starting with a small group and you're hoping to ultimately build it to a large group. And I know, Nat, you've shared your story about how that worked for you. You need to let people know what you're doing. Also, it makes you accountable for what you're doing. So if you've started to share that you're doing a workshop coming up, even if you've only got 3 or 4 people initially applying for that workshop, you have to make it amazing for them. You have to make it the most amazing event just for those few. And you've made yourself accountable if you've started to share that information. And I know it's the same for authors. They say, if you're going to write a book, tell everyone that you're going to write a book, because it makes you accountable to actually finish the project.
I did that last blab. I did that exact same. I was like, I'm writing my second book, and I'm like, now I got to do it.
And now you got to do it. And it's the same with a workshop. Don't sort of hide in the background and think, gosh, I hope a few people come, and market for success. Tell people about it, rave about it, share your joy, share your passion, and that way, even if the first one's not huge, you will start to have a rolling, interest. And I think, it happens for all of us. For when I started my kids' workshops, I used to have fully booked and waiting lists. And then somehow I just used to have them full. And then for some reason, sometimes no one joins. And I think that's bizarre. Kids' workshops are usually absolutely packed. What's happened? Is it just that it's the wrong end of the holidays? Are parents going to leave it to the last minute to book? What's going on with this? Don't get despondent about it. Just keep pushing the marketing out there. Use your networks to help you let people know. Go back to the people who used to come to them and say, hey, did you know? Because if you're just relying on a post on Facebook, to let people know, then it's just not going to work. You need to use every method. And one thing that I do a lot is I try to get the location that I've booked to co-market with me. And that works so well, because it's a win-win. It's a win for you, but it's a win for that location as well, for whatever reason. Maybe they're just a place that you can hire out, so they want other people to hire them because that's their business. Maybe they're a business that is similar to yours, but they're looking for extra income. So you, in sharing it, A, you're paying them for using the facility. B, when people come to that facility, they get to market what else is going on there, which may be their business or other people's business. So for you, Nat, I know you use the parenting place. Every time we all come down to the parenting place to meet you, we also see what the parenting place is offering. And we think, gosh, I've got teenage boys. I should come to one of the teenage classes. So it's a win for you because you've got me coming. It's a win for the parenting place because they've been able to soft market because I'm in their location. And interestingly, I use a competitor's space sometimes to do my team builds. And that's a win-win. They know I'm going to do a professional job, so they're happy for me to be in their space. For them, they're marketing cooking classes and other things that they're running within that space. And I know perfectly well that some of my clients end up being their clients as well. So, that's a win. And for the kids' classes, I hold them in a gourmet store here in New Zealand. And for them, it's marketing the rest of their store. It's not about my class, but everyone who comes to those classes there ends up leaving with a shopping basket full of groceries or clocks to themselves, oh, wow, when I hold a dinner party, I'm going to come back here because look at all these beautiful gourmet items in the shop. So, again, it's a win-win for both of us. So ask your people, ask your location to help promote, and use every platform you can to promote your
Definitely.
your workshop.
While we're talking about promoting, I know it's kind of like a piece of string situation, but what lead time in your experience works for you? Like, meaning, when do you start promoting it and tickets go on sale? How far ahead from the event?
I guess for me, for my corporate events, Nat, I'm going straight to the coalface. So I'm actually going to the company and asking them, you know, this is what I'm offering. Would you like to book in for a team build? So in that case, it's up to the company. So there isn't really a lead time to be fair.
I'll just jump on that one. So that's up to them to promote it. But in terms of the lead time on that itself, like going to normally when you approach a corporate, say, I'd love to do a workshop for you. If they say yes, is it normally like, yep, like we'll do it in 3 months time, or is there?
Oh, absolutely. So for example, I've got a client now who's already said, yes, we'll use you for our Christmas function.
Here, throw some names out. Are you allowed to say who you've worked for in the past?
I've got some great clients. So, so Sheffield, which is a huge people search company here, like a employment kind of company, and the Warehouse, which is a huge retail group here, quite a few law firms, Henry Schein, which is a dental export company. Also very blessed to be the ambassador for Ronald McDonald House Charities here in New Zealand. So I do a lot of corporate events at Ronald McDonald House and for their corporate sponsors as well. Nosh Food Market are a client and also offer me a location, so that's fantastic too. So I've been really blessed. I've got some wonderful clients and repeat clients as well. And I think that's the other thing about your workshops. If you keep reproducing the same workshop, that's okay for getting new leads. And if you're using your workshop to lead into another offer, then I can completely understand that. But for me, my business is workshops. So what I'm leading into is another workshop at this stage. That's my core business. So for me, when I've got one client who comes in and does an amazing workshop with me and says, that was just so amazing and wonderful, and then I recontact them for the following year or the following quarter, they'll say, oh, yeah, but we've done that. And I then need to come up with, well, actually, if you come back, I am going to create an entirely new and different experience for you. So it won't be repetitive. And I've had one client come back 3 times. And, you know, the hugely positive feedback for me was we were a little bit worried that we were coming back and it would be more of the same. But you know, you completely, even though it was still food, you completely turned it around, and we were blown away with what we had to achieve in the class, and the way I set it up and the way they even ate the food was different. You know, I really turned it around so that I can have repeat clients, because otherwise you're just constantly trying to work on new lead people. And that's hard.
I so love that you said that right now, because one of the things I'm really trying to reinforce to a lot of people is I find a lot of people going like, I need to grow my list. I need to grow my list. They're like a train chugging along. And I'm like, yes, totally agree. The gold is in the list. But quite often the diamonds are in your existing list. Like it's so,
totally.
Right? It's market to people that already know you. They've already spent a little bit of money or time with you. And so I want to remind people that don't get so focused on your numbers that you think I have to, like, I've got only 1,200 people on my list and I need 2,000. It's like, actually those 1,200 people, if you just go and shoulder tap a few of them, they'd probably love to come to your workshop or join your coaching program or whatever it is. So I love that you said that. And I love the fact that you're saying, you know, tweak your offering. So I just put in the comments, tip number 5, offer new topics as this, and then as a side sell, meaning kind of similar price, but the next thing they can buy, or have an upsell, more expensive thing that is a natural fit and flow on from your workshop. So maybe it's a retreat, right? A cooking retreat would be really cool, or a one-on-one coaching, or a small group coaching program that's like 6 weeks only, etc. So there's so many things to think about. Hey, I just wanted to talk about something that relates to planning, and it has to do with if you're planning and you've got a list, for example, of what needs to be prepared to go to your workshop. A lot of the times when we first start workshops, we do it all ourselves, right? We take it all on our shoulders, and then we get to the point of thinking like we either need to, you know, ditch some of what we're doing too much, or we need to delegate, right? And so I know this is something you're working on, Ness, is actually handing over the shopping basket to somebody else to do this, just the shopping for you, because a lot of us get so busy, which is great. We're in hot demand. But when you're still trying to do everything, it doesn't serve you, right? And it doesn't keep you in your area of genius, so to speak. So I guess that's one of the other tips for everybody, is part of having a plan and systems and lists means that then when someone else comes in, you can delegate tasks to them. And I know,
Absolutely.
I don't know if Renee is still on the call, but Renee from My Fun Box, she has these amazing kids activity boxes. They get delivered to your door every month, which is really cool. But again, for her, she's getting really busy. So she's at the point of like needing to delegate some tasks so somebody else can help her either do the shopping or pack the activity boxes. So I think it's relevant for everybody's business is just be ready and prepared and organized so that when the time comes for you to hire somebody on casual basis or permanent basis, that you've got the systems in place to make it like a really easy transition. And so that's incentive for some people. Even that guy you mentioned, he's like, oh, I just throw it all together. I know what I'm doing. It's like, yeah, but you don't need to be the one doing it all the time. So I think that's a really important message for people as well. The other thing I wanted to mention before we bring people on, if they want to ask questions or share their own experience, is when people are really in the zone during a workshop, usually at the end-ish of a workshop, it's a great time to get live testimonials, right? Because people are super amped. Is that something that you've ever done in the past? Either get them to write them down, that's fine, or ideally like a video testimonial?
What I have done, which I found really good for the corporates, is because we do the presentation, I also take loads of photos along the way. So what I always do is immediately the next day, whoever has organized it, which tends to be a PA or a marketing person, I will send them a snapshot of the photos or maybe a Dropbox file if I've taken a load of them, and a couple of the fun comments from the night. And I give it to them and say, thank you so much. Your team was so fantastic to work with. And these are some of the moments that we shared, and it was wonderful. Any feedback from you, any feedback, obviously, positive or negative, or what it could have, how it could be next time, please share back. And if you get them the moment after, I mean, my events tend to be night for corporates. So if you can get them the morning after, mostly I will find that the email will come back saying it's all anyone can talk about in the office.
Yeah, nice.
It's been the buzz over the coffee machine the whole morning, and then grab some words from them then. Because if you leave it a couple of days, the hype has sort of come down. Now, I find that night, Nat, often there's some alcohol going around in my workshops as well. I just let them go. I just let them go home, be happy, and wait for them to have some coffee in the morning and then hit them with it. Yeah. But I think
I actually have not done a lot of that at my networking events, as I haven't done captured the live testimonials, but at one of the hot seat events I did recently, and I'm doing another one, by the way, coming up for the ladies in my online community, my mastermind group. We are doing a half day, which is like a hot seat, get stuff done day. And the last time I ran one of these, Natalie Sisson and I did it together, and I actually got some video testimonials, and just the energy of the girls, right? After they've just been able to have 20 minutes with us, like rapid firing business coaching advice to them, right? And also getting the gold from the other girls in the room. So it's a true mastermind experience, and they're just like on fire. It's such a great time and there's no alcohol involved. So everyone's happy, with the way they're appearing. It's a great chance to get people just really speaking from the heart about how they benefited from the day. And then of course, when you go to market again for the next one, you can bring those testimonials out, and it gives people an idea. Because some people, right, like to watch. Some people get excited about things by watching how excited other people are. Like, oh my God, look at, if she got that out of that event, then imagine what I'm going to get. Whereas other people, you want to have good copy, good words, but you also, video just has that certain element, that just that power. And I think if you can at your workshops, people either have a camera set up like in a corner, like speaker's corner. And at any stage during the workshop, guys, if you feel called, I'd love it if you could go over, just click record. Maybe it's like a selfie stick or on a stand tripod, and record a little testimonial. That would be awesome. Like you could even do that at the start, so that at any stage when they feel like it, they can go and do a testimonial. Or at the very end, you kind of have someone near the door saying, hey guys, I'd love it if you could all just kind of file through and just speak from the heart, like 1 minute. And you could even ask them questions like an interviewer. You could be like, what's the one top takeaway that you got from today? Or what's your one aha moment? Or what would you say to someone who was thinking of coming to a workshop like this? Would you recommend it to them? And they'd be like, oh my gosh, totally. You just kind of some candid, genuine stuff, nothing too scripted.
Yeah.
And it just has a lot of power.
Yeah, sure. And just before we do go on to questions, Nat, I think the final thing about involving the audience, I just wanted to say a couple of things. I think, yeah, sure, ask questions, but it's kind of more than that. It's also understanding there may be people in the room you think, why on earth are they here? I really can't see them being my ideal client. But don't ever forget that they also have connections, because I think that's really, really important. Sometimes, like for my kids, you know, the kids come in and I love working with kids, and it's not that I don't enjoy it, but sometimes you think, well, that's nice. I've just run a kids class. Yes, I used to teach children and in school, and so this is fantastic for me because I've got the education and the food, and I know it gives them a buzz. But don't forget, all those kids have parents. And when the parents text you and say, hey, can you let my kid in today? I haven't had a chance to print the ticket, and I work. So is it okay if I drop her off half an hour early? I'm like, absolutely. And then when she comes up and says, oh, where do you work, by the way? Maybe you want my card because I've got a corporate event coming up. Yeah. You know, don't forget, there may be someone sitting in the room who you think, oh, it may not be them, but it may be their sister, or it may be their aunt, or it may be someone else that they end up going, you know, that workshop I went to, oh my gosh, you should contact that person because she's, you know, you've talked about running, and here's your girl who's going to help you with your running, or whatever it is. And equally, you know, don't, if you've got your audience there and you can see something that adds some fire when you mention it. You know, you've got your guys come in, they've got their crossed arms, they're miserable about being there, they really don't think that they want to do cooking, and you start to tell them they're doing, they're grumpy, you tell them they're doing a degustation dinner MasterChef challenge, and you see some of them starting to back towards the door. Throw it back at them. Hey, I can see you backing towards the door. Yeah. You know, I'm really sorry, guys. The door's locked. You're in here. Come on, you know, come back to me. Come back to me. I promise you this is going to be fun. Actually kind of throw it back at them a little bit and engage them that way. Yeah, call it. I think you've really got to call it. And if it's a group of men and they really do look a bit depressed about being there, and you're cooking some, you know, you've thought that you're going to cook some gourmet meal with them, then, you know, for me, I think, okay, how can I give them some tips about how they could reproduce this at home, but on the barbecue? Yeah. Or if it's kids, and ideally the food we're cooking would be over an open flame, but tell the kids, hey, you could do this at home. You could ask mum to put it in a tray under a grill in the oven. She could help you do that. Always have a think, you know, who's my audience? What will be the tip or trick that they'll be able to take away and reproduce what I've talked about at home in their environment? Because obviously I'm a little bit maybe offbeat for the people in my room. So how can I bring it back so that it resonates with them?
It's so important to help them with that transition. So whenever I wrap up a workshop, often I'll say, okay, so for out of this workshop, I want you all to set one goal that you're going to work on in the next, 2 months or 2 weeks or whatever the case may be. And then what are the 3 action steps you need to take to achieve that goal, or whatever it is. But whoever is doing a workshop, make sure you can help them transition it back into the real world. And then of course there's so much more we haven't talked about, but follow up with them afterwards. Ideally send like an email or even a private message if it's a small group, and say like, hey, how are you going with this? And there's, just basically keep connected with them, and also keep a separate list so that the next time you have a workshop, you can write to them specifically. Like, I know you came along to the last one. If you love that, you're totally going to love this, rather than just bunging them on your big list of 2,000 people. Have them in a separate list of 20. So you can write them a really specific email about, the benefits that they got from the last workshop, and how this next one is going to be just as amazing and totally different. Hey, what I thought we'd do with our extra 7 or so minutes is bring some people in. I can see that somebody, the Motherhood NZ is asking about, do you think your teaching background helped make the transition into taking workshops, Vanessa? So if you want to come on in, Motherhood, or anyone else, we've got 2 places, as you know, on Blab. You can get 4 faces here. So this is a great time for people to come in, tell us, a little bit about your business, and then either ask a question or give your tips from running a workshop or being a participant on a workshop. What have you seen that has worked well? What have you seen that hasn't worked so well? Share your gold. So go ahead if anyone wants.
Motherhood.
You can answer. Yeah.
I'll answer the motherhood. So actually, funnily enough, I taught early childhood in Ho Chi Minh City. in Saigon for several years, but I don't have a teaching background. I actually have a psychology degree, but I worked at a school that was run by a Dutch woman, and in Holland you can teach early childhood up until the age of, I think it's 5 or 6. The child is 5 or 6 with a psychology background. So that's how I actually fell into the teaching. And I think, you know, it's an innate passion. I love kids, I love the cooking, and I love music. And I did do music and psychology at university. And even in those classes, you know, I introduced cooking and I introduced music, and I don't know. It's just me. I think I just love it. I love the whole education, being able to share and watch people come in and just sort of maybe with those kids, you know, they were tiny. They might have been crying or feeling sad about saying goodbye to their parents at the door. And for me, the satisfaction was them joining in circle time and having a sing and suddenly smiling and being engaged for the whole morning with me in the class. So that was the rewarding bit. So I think whether it's, you know, an 18-month-old, whether it's a group of kids coming to a cooking class, or whether it's a group of corporates, to be able to see them arriving and just like, oh, here's yet another break away from my conference, leaving feeling so fantastic about it. That's, you know, that's the joy. So yes and no to the teaching. I think that's just me, you know, it's just something I'm passionate about. So
oh goodie, here she comes. Here she
Hi,
comes
Alison.
in. Yes, same thing for me. I'm not a teacher either, but I've been an Outward Bound instructor, and so I definitely use some of those skills, but no, not a teacher. We've got Alison here from Run for Your Life. We've got the motherhood coming in.
Awesome.
Is it Jane? I can't. We can't see her yet. So Alison, go ahead, and it is Jane. Go ahead and introduce yourself, your business, and give us your tip. Actually, we'll go to Jane first, since Vanessa was responding to her. So, girls, name and business, and then any either tips you want to share or questions that you've got.
Yeah, I'm Jane, and I have a social network called The Motherhood. I've also got the 2-year-old running around here, so. And yeah, just listening to what you were saying, and I'm looking in the direction where I'm going to take things eventually. And so it was just quite interesting. Having my background as a teacher, listening to what you were saying, a lot of those tips are things that teachers, having a plan B, going with the flow, you know, going with that teachable moment, a lot of those things are resonating with my teaching background, which
Yeah.
First of all, big ups to teachers out there, all teachers.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Saluting you. Jane, can you tell us the motherhood, like, what are you all about? So you can work, it doesn't have to be your 60-second spiel, but just give us a bit of an idea about how you help people and who you're mainly out there to help.
Yeah, it's a online network really for mums, but it's aimed at mums, and supporting mums online really. We answer questions, we have reviews, we're just sort of here to bring mums together and create a community.
Mums of any age children?
Yeah, pretty much under 5, but there is mums of all ages.
Perfect. And New Zealand or international?
In based in New Zealand, but we have quite a few international followers and things as well. So we're not restricted by borders. We're there for everybody. But our main focus is probably nationally in New Zealand at the moment.
Okay, so we'll come back to you for any tips that you've got in terms of if you ran a workshop or if you attended one. We'll go to Alison for, tell us about Run for Your Life. What do you do? And either your tip or your question.
So I'm Alison. Thanks, Nat, for letting me on. So Alison from Run for Your Life Coaching. I basically help women to learn to love running, and through doing that to love themselves. It can be building self-esteem, losing weight, finding new friends, completing an event such as, you know, a 5K or even a marathon.
Oh, I saw a post the other day on your page, and we had these 2 girls, and they were like, "Thank you so much, Run for Your Life. We're in your community, and now through you, we've met each other, and we go jogging together." I love that.
Yeah, they lived just 20 minutes apart, but didn't realize how close they were, and they each wanted to have a running buddy. And now they've got each other. Yeah. And they're both mums, so they can, you know, share parenting tips and fails and things.
That's awesome. So tell us about either a workshop you're running or a tip you might have or a question.
So one thing I'm wanting to launch this year is to get into the corporates, because when I'm at events myself, I see a lot of groups that are from businesses, and there's generally a couple of people who don't look like they are a typical runner and have been struggling to complete the event because they might not have known what training to do, or, you know, just little things like how much they eat or drink. And so I'm just wanting to know how you first got started with the corporate stuff, Ness. Is like, where do you go to find your, you know, the corporates, and who do you approach?
Okay, so I think for me it's been quite varied, but what you'll find is, and I think I was thinking about you in the running scenario, you almost need to be having stuff to hand out at the end of a race, although there's possibly a lot of stuff being handed out that gets thrown in a rubbish bin. So maybe you need to have a look at the groups that are running. So, you know, because I wear a corporate t-shirt, so maybe, and also at the end of those races they tend to have their tents, don't they, like a hospitality tent or whatever. You would actually take note of the main companies that are there and then follow up with them afterwards. Hey, I was running, I saw you, and this is what I offer. So that's pretty much what I've done, and I've done it through, you know, I've been blessed to have the role at Ronald McDonald House, but I started that role very much that I was just popping in and teaching children, and then what I noticed was a lot of corporates were coming in and using the kitchen at Ronald McDonald House. So I started to take note of who I saw there, and then I would contact them. Hey, it looked like you really enjoyed that. Big company. So one ASB group at Ronald McDonald House doesn't mean it's done and dusted, in my opinion. So I'm thinking there's one group that's already gone in and they've just done a free, hey, we're going to cook for the families. But maybe through that, I can say, hey, look, I've noticed one team of yours was at Ronald McDonald House the other day. I'm actually going to offer corporate team builds. Now, you can either do it with me as a give back also at Ronald McDonald House, but I also offer them as a fun event instead of like all going to a restaurant at the end of the night, blah, 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 blah. So I think, you know, it is a little bit cold, but you've kind of got a lead in. So I think for you, Alison, maybe that's what you could do is say, oh my gosh, there's a yellow and red tent, that's DHL. Look at that, DHL have got half of their staff out there. So I need to call DHL and say, hey, you know, I noticed that you guys are all running, but for me, I bet there's a whole core of that company that are just sitting in chairs at computers going, I don't want to join them at the marathon because I have no idea how to run. But maybe as a company, they're thinking, you know, gosh, we really need to get the health of our people better, but we don't quite know how to do it, and the CEO's too busy and his PA's too busy and marketing are trying to do marketing and they've got someone on their back trying to get their numbers up for that year, you know, and that's what they're focused on, but they know they have to tick the social corporate responsibility box. So that's where I try to come in with my charity offerings. And for you, they've got to tick the health of their business. They've got to tick that now as a corporate responsibility for their staff. So if you can somehow go to them and say, I know you've got numbers to make, I know that's what you need to focus on, I'm coming in as a consultant to offer you the tick the box on the side. You've got staff who are possibly not too healthy. You can't build a gym in the middle of your office. That doesn't work. But what I can offer is a couple of workshops, free workshops in your office at lunchtime in your staff room. And then from that, maybe as a company, you'd like to buy into my program and it's X, Y, and Z. I don't know. I'm just making it up. But that's sort of how I would start probably.
Would it be like,
I love that.
Like, what department do you go for? That's really the sticking point for me because I've never really worked corporate.
To be honest, it's probably very similar to me and I get a little bit confused too. So I might have a CEO's PA booking something. I might have the CEO booking it. I might have the marketing people booking it.
Yeah.
You might have the social club booking it. But the social club is actually not your answer. The social club's okay if you're trying to get individuals, but you are actually you're looking at the top. You want it to come from the head office bit, the real top core, because they're the ones making the decisions and having to say, you know, there are business awards out there, Alison, where some of the banks, I think, and even DHL itself offer awards for all the different parts of business and say, you know, you are the shining focus of New Zealand for this year because you have a great employee program and you have this, that, and the other. That is your top senior management that are making those calls to make sure they tick all of those boxes when they're audited for those prizes. And auditing for those prizes is not just about numbers. It's about numbers plus employee satisfaction, plus the health of the business, and that includes healthy employees, plus what are they doing for social corporate responsibility. So you're probably going to the head of marketing or right to the very top, and they will pass. If you hit the CEO or his PA, they will pass it. He'll go, oh, my God, I don't have time for this, but this is exactly what we need, and they'll pass it. And I say he, I should say they, will pass it to the person that is appropriate. I go to the top.
Yep, I totally love that. I love how she's saying go, like, notice who's at the finish line, notice who's got the tents, go to them. And similarly, I would say notice who's not there and go to them and be like, hey, I noticed you, like, I saw like ASB and BNZ, but hey, Westpac, I didn't see you guys. Where, you know, if you want to make sure that you put a team in next year, I'd love to help you. I'd love to help you do that. Right. So it's like you can kind of get it from both sides. So some really good tips from Ness there about how to approach them. Jane, I'll unmute you. Do you want to add anything to the conversation about your experience or a question?
I'm just listening away. And actually, I think what I've got out of it is I was a bit reluctant and things to do workshops and things like this, but listening to Vanessa and listening to you, Natalie, and actually I have got those skills, having been teaching for a time, that I really just got to back myself and go for it.
That is good to hear.
Yeah, I was listening and writing things down very, very quickly before.
Yay!
That's what we want. We actually want people to come away from this blab feeling inspired and being a bit clearer on the actions that they can take to make their goals happen. I mean, that's why we're here having this discussion. Yeah. And so that's why we're going to put the replay out so that more people can get inspired about what workshops they can do. And so they can avoid some of the mistakes that the rest of us have made. And if they do make mistakes, which they will, they can learn from the journey and do it differently next time. Allison, any other comments from you? Hey, little one, any comments from you about workshops?
No, just that this was a very well-timed blab.
Awesome. I'd just like to do one thing about when something goes wrong, because it will. And I did have this scenario last week, and I think it goes back to my point of call it. So someone had booked their children in and they were too old for my kids' classes, and they were dropped off and they came up. So I immediately noted that some of my helpers were younger than the two kids who had walked in. It was very difficult for me to change that class because it was already set up, and what we did was what we had to do. But what I did was, first I called it with the participants themselves and said, hey, how did you end up in this class? This class had a maximum age of such and such. And they're like, we don't know, we were just booked in. And I felt bad because I know, and I felt bad for them because I knew that the takeaway for them was they were entertained for 2 hours, but there was no take home for them. And so I felt really bad. I felt ill, actually. I felt sick about it. So what I did was immediately came home and wrote an email to every single person. And as you said, Nat, not to my huge mailing list because they weren't there. I got all the names of the people that had attended the 3 classes that I did that last week, which I knew included the person that had booked those girls in, but I didn't specify it to them. I just wrote an email saying, this is how the classes went. I felt so privileged to have your children in my classes. It was so amazing. I noticed, I have positioned these classes for this age group because of feedback in the past, but I noticed there were some older children. Is this something that you think they would like? Blah, 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 blah. And I got all positive feedback, bar the one, which I was expecting, which said my children didn't really take much from your class because they felt they'd been distracted by the younger children. Mm-hmm. Then I went back with a personal email. Yes, I remember your children. They were absolutely gorgeous, blah, 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 blah. If I did a class that matched to their age, do you think they'd still be interested? Dear Vanessa, yes, they loved you. They would love to join you again. They just were not wanting to be with younger children. So I solved it. I solved it for myself as well because I went to bed feeling sick. And instead of burying it and thinking, I hope I don't get bad feedback from that parent, I called it before she could think to write a complaint, or if she was going to. You know, I think you've just got to be constantly upfront and actually knock it on the head and be open and say, I know that didn't work for your kids or for your client or whatever.
That is such awesome feedback. I know you also had the situation, and I love earlier how you said, you know, your workshops were going well, and then all of a sudden, like, no one's booking. And it's so great to hear when someone, you know, with a big profile like you, everyone, you know, no one's got it all figured out. This is what I love telling people, like, no one's got it all figured out. Even people with a big profile, sometimes for who knows what reason, have trouble filling workshops. But then at the end of the day, you had too many people, right?
Oh, yeah, I had waiting lists. I had people emailing me saying, my child is crying because we can't buy a ticket. I'm like, oh, my gosh, you know, 10 days ago I had nobody booked. Yeah.
You know, and this is such a great opportunity. If someone messages you, my child is crying because I can't get a ticket, and a couple choices. Hey, well, just like save the date because my next workshop is this date, or
Absolutely.
Great opportunity to pull something out of your back pocket, to so to speak, and say, hey, well, if you'd like to, I'm more than happy to create a special workshop either at Nosh or at your home. If you and your child can get 8 people together, I'm more than happy to do it at X number of dollars per head or whatever. You can actually create a new workshop for yourself out of that opportunity of someone who's on the wait list but just doesn't want to wait for the next save the date.
Yeah, exactly. So just think of it all as opportunities. Even the negative, everyone hates negative feedback, but hey, I've been on MasterChef, you know, and thankfully I didn't follow my own hashtag. I was told by my sister not to because I probably, you know, wouldn't be here today. So I didn't actually check out my own hashtag, but I certainly got a lot of negative feedback on my own Facebook page, which, you know, I couldn't manage. I mean, a couple of people were removed. It was really, really awful. It was awful. But from that, you know, you can build something positive, and you have to say, okay, if it is a negative feedback, what is it that I could have done better for that person? Or acknowledge to yourself that you had a workshop of 20 people, 6 of them have sent you the most extraordinary feedback, and you've had one email that isn't 100% wonderful, and say, hey, that's okay. You know, I still did an amazing job, and yeah, I'm going to feel a bit bad for that one person, and you know, maybe I have to acknowledge that didn't work for them, but don't stop doing them because of it.
And it's even a great opportunity to go back to them and say, you know, thank you so much. You know, if you were me, what would you have done differently? Like, you can actually get some gold from them as well, rather than feeling bad about it. But I agree, celebrate the good stuff. Right? So ladies, we're gonna wrap things up now. So if I would love to go around and get everyone to say how we can follow you. If people want to find your website or your Facebook page, how can they find you? So Ness, you kick things off.
Okay, I'm vanessabaxter.co.nz, and I'm also on Facebook as Official Vanessa Baxter, and I'm going to be starting a foodie blab, but I'm not quite there yet, so follow me and I'll let you know when I'm going to be next back on, and that's me.
Excellent. Jane. Wait, let me unmute you. Go.
At www.themotherhood.co.nz, and we're on Facebook as well, and that's at The Motherhood NZ.
Excellent. Alison.
I'm Run For Your Life, and here's one I've made for my blab, which is at 1:30 this afternoon.
Oh.
So I'm at www.runforyourlifecoaching.co.nz or Facebook Run For Your Life, and I'm on Twitter, Blab, Instagram.
That is awesome.
Great idea.
That's great.
You can probably tell that Alison coaches with me because I'm equally as prepared. So when you're doing Blab, it's a great chance. People can either get someone to type it in the chat box or hold it up. Here's mine, gotogirlssocialmedia.com. Oh, look at Ness. And then on the other side, this is my business card. I know you can't read it. So Go To Girl is all about connecting and coaching and empowering women entrepreneurs. And hopefully that's what we've done with you guys today. Thank you for watching our Blab show. As you know, we're back here weekly. It's 10:30 on Tuesdays. It's 1:30 PST, 10:30 in New Zealand, with lots of amazing inspirational guests to inspire you higher in your life and business. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you want to get super duper inspired higher real quick, I'd love to invite you to apply for my influencers group. I've got 6 places left. We're starting pretty soon. So that is that is a 6-month coaching program with me and my amazing girls in my influencers group. If that appeals to you, you can check it out. Just go to my website, look in the search box under influencers, and you'll find it there. Great, ladies. Thanks so much to Vanessa. And thanks for you guys coming on, Jane and Allison.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys next time.
See you, Nat.
Thanks.
Bye, Allison.
Bye.
Bye.